They had to inflate 9 different times, yes.
I was just wondering if there was any extra cost per each balloon.
No, there isn't. It was as many balloons as you need, and so they did it 9 times.
That's good to know. I was just in Mexico, and I had the treatment on July 27th.
Woohoo!
And for every
Lori, right?
For every extra balloon that they've had to use, it cost me an extra $2,300. That's what they charged me there. So I just think it's really important before anybody goes anywhere, just to make sure that you know all that information before you go. The stent would have been $2,700, but the balloons were $2,300.
Well, thank you very much, Lori, for that information. I know that the balloons do have an individual cost. Do you know that, Dr. Code?
No, they're reasonably expensive to make, and so the pharmaceutical companies that make them, they charge a great deal for them. And they're somewhere in that range of $1,500 to $2,500 because there's different ways to fancify or shape them and different components. And each individual may need some of the unique ones of a different balloon. You can't be certain what you'll end up needing.
Yes, yeah.
I know that other places have remarked that I had an extraordinary number of balloons. I got really good value for my money. And your name's Lori, right?
My name's Kathy.
Oh, you're Kathy. Oh, well, please grab one of our I've Been angioplasty balloons on your way out. And could you please tell us the name of the clinic you went to?
I went through World Club Assist, and I went to Tijuana Angeles Hospital, Angeles in Tijuana, Mexico.
Okay, well, thank you, Kathy. Good advice to when you're getting in a cab in a foreign country and getting angioplasty. Check the price ahead of time.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, this is a question for Bill Code. I wonder, I've Googled a bit. I wanted to know, this treatment is only part of the picture. It's pretty clear that MS seems to only happen in the temperate zones. Vitamin D plays a really big part in it. I also wonder, I've Googled this, I can't find anything. People who have chronic, blood things, I'm having one of those moments right now. Anemia, like I have thalassemia minor. Does that protect you? Can that protect you somehow? And what is the whole picture with the blood blockage and the temperate zone? And has anybody ever kind of looked at that whole picture?
I'll try and answer your question. I've been in conversation with Dr. Moguel in Mexico, and I sent him an email and I asked him, I said, Doctor, I also sent the same email to Dr. Pedrosa, who's our neurologist. What the heck did that come from? Neurologist. Yeah, different.
Neurologist.
Yeah, her. Anyway, I had asked him, I said, in your professional opinion, are there, or is there a possibility of related occurrences with regards to chronic fatigue and fibromyalgia and Parkinson's disease? Now, they mailed me back and said, well, not Parkinson's, because that's more neurological, but the other two, the chronic fatigue and the fibromyalgia, is probably most definitely. However, at this time, there is no known study which is going on to find out whether that is
That's not really my question. My question was more about blood anemia disorders like sickle cell anemia, thalassemia, minor, major, medium, those kind of diseases, and also geography, because we do know that MS occurs only in the temperate zones. Well, the closer you get to the equator, it disappears.
I know that as far as geography goes, I'm going to field that question over to Dr. Code, I've read his books, and I think he can answer that question.
Well, there's a couple of parts to the question. First of all, geography. I mean, we've always talked that it's especially in the temperate zones, and it is to a degree, and I think there is a component to vitamin D. But it's also now hugely common in India and in the Middle East. All right? It has spread around the entire world. There seems to be a subset of people that are relatively resistant genetically, and that would be the Asian people. But I've now met a full-blooded First Nations as well as a full-blooded Chinese person with MS. Okay? It's not exclusive to that. So it's much more pervasive than it was. When I was doing my integrative medicine training in the United States, cardiovascular surgeon from Duke, who grew up in India, was astounded at the frequency it's now diagnosed in India, you know, right along the equator. So it's no longer just the temperate zones. It seems to be much more pervasive. As far as any association with any of the other specialty anemias, none that I'm at all aware of, and read about it a great deal. So I don't think that there is associations within those groups, but it's not exclusive not to have a secondary problem. And of course, if you have one autoimmune disease, such as MS, you are much more likely to have a second autoimmune disease, whether that's low thyroid, you know, Hashimoto's thyroiditis, or whether that's any other variation, or psoriasis, which I have also had a burst of. Okay, so the autoimmune continuity, and as we get more of those all the time, when we have one, we're more prone to have others. But as far as the anemias, and as long as you exclude the issues of folic acid and B12 anemias, which can be concurrent and mimic MS in some ways, then there's no relation that I'm aware of.
Okay, the next question, Braden, who have we got?
My question is a medical question. I noticed that most of the panel have only been recently diagnosed. I was diagnosed more than 40 years ago. If I have the blockage or the narrowing in my veins, have there been any studies with people who have been diagnosed or have had MS for many, many years, success versus non-success?
No, there have been no studies. I was diagnosed 31 years ago, though. Or I'm not diagnosed. I was diagnosed in 92, so however many years that is. But I've had it for 31 years. So, I think what we're learning is we need to throw the book out on MS. We're talking about CCSVI, and you know, as Dr. Coates said, these veins are laid down when we're in our mother's wombs, and we're trying to get them treated now as adults. And so what we're trying to do is say what symptoms that we thought all along might be MS are actually coming out to be treatable with this venous problem. And so, you know, yes, I was diagnosed with MS in 92, but on the other hand, I've had these vein problems all my life. There's been no studies. The studies are very slow in coming, but they are underway.
But have there been any studies about age, as in the older you are, you're less likely to be successful because of some type of, you know, degenerating?
Well, no, I can see very much where you're coming from, and I think we've revolutionized what the brain can recover from in the last decade, okay? If you read, you know, the brain that heals itself or changes itself, there's no reason, no matter what age you are, to give up hope. I think that's totally unreasonable, okay? And people vary. This is, I believe, another piece of the puzzle to give us hope. And I said earlier, it likely won't be an option for every one of us here as far as having blockages, but many of us it may, all right? But there's no reason to go by the number of years of MS. I was diagnosed in 96. I haven't had the procedure, but I'm booked for September 1 and 2 in Buffalo, New York, all right? So I believe it is a worthwhile stone to turn over in your journey with MS. And I am 57 the end of this month.
Okay, the lady in the front next.
My question is that For the, if you guys have had the procedure, can you be taking, is there anything you're supposed to do to keep the veins open now? And can you be taking iron supplements like that? Or is that anything that you should be avoiding or doing to keep them open?
I had a stent, so I'm on blood thinners for at least a year, Plavix, and coated aspirin, probably for the rest of my life. Does that answer your question?
Yeah. Is there a chance that they will get blocked again, that you'll have to have this surgery again?
Absolutely. Regardless of whether I'm on blood thinners or not, there's no guarantee. I have a stent on the right-hand side. I can re-stenose above or below it somewhere else. Yeah, but the people on the panel, we're not medical experts. We're lay people, and we can't really. It's best to do your research and ask a doctor those questions because we know about our own experience. But yeah.
I know my doctor told me in Albany, he said, go home, try to get used to the new circulation, what it's doing, observe the changes in your body. He said, if you feel yourself slipping backwards after you've had some gains, he said, call me and we'll talk about it over the phone. And he said, and we'll decide whether further diagnostics are in order to find out whether something has happened. But he said, expect it not to be a straight path of improvement. There's going to be setbacks. And so, all of us have said it. You're in for this for the long term. And, nobody can tell at what point do you run and say, I'm re-stenosing. There's that big fear out there. But I look at this like having my teeth cleaned. If I had to do this every couple of years, I'm in.
There's a few inferences we can draw from other times and times gone by. Coronary artery bypass grafting, okay? Typically, 90% of those block within the first year, okay? So they have found so far with working with the jugular veins and the azygous veins, up to half of the jugular veins can block in the first year. The azygous vein, only 5% tend to block. But there's another part to that really matters. First of all, if one gets a window of improvement, you may well continue to have that improvement, even if the other variation of blockage partly happens again, all right? It's a completely unpredictable entity. With angioplasty and the heart, many of those block within the first year, and that's why we put in stents. And then now we're talking about what do we do to prevent it? You heard everybody on the panel ended up with heparin, which is a short-term thing which we use to keep veins open, because once you stretch or irritate a vein, it's more likely to have stickiness of platelets and have a clot occur. And that's what they're preventing with the short-term heparin. If you put in a foreign body, such as a stent, it's an irritant to that vein, and that's why they end up on long-term Plavix and or aspirin. Okay? Plavix is usually discontinued at 6 or 12 months, depending on the protocol that's involved. But these are almost all protocols that have been borrowed from coronary angioplasty. And so we're still in our infancy in that regard, as far as finding out. But many of the openings that happen, will make a significant difference, and the flow will potentially maintain, and some improvement may occur. We don't know what the opening will do as far as the brain's recovery. You will still need to do your own personal rehab as far as recovery if you lost a fair bit of that, but it may hugely assist the rate of it.
Okay, next, Shara.
Hello. I wanted to thank you guys, first of all, for sharing all of your experiences, because this is amazing. And then secondly, I was hoping that all of you, Bob sort of touched on the follow-up that he's doing with Cabo, but I was wondering what you guys are doing in terms of follow-up, and also wondered if, Dr. Code, you might be able to speak a little bit to that in terms of what are the opportunities if we do re-stenose and we're back in Canada. Are we going to be ignored by the medical system entirely, or is there an opportunity for treatment there?
Yeah, how about Sylvia? How about you start with